So before I start and stuff, I'm going to pass up some more stuff again in reference to this case. I just wanted to make sure that Brenda and her husband gets this. So this is just to give you guys a brief summary and history in reference to the Roses and their dogs. This is anything from complaints to citations that were given, guilty verdicts, etc., to try to get you guys up to speed. This is a very large case, a lot of history here. I'm going to try to make it as brief as possible. I have Officer Madera here basically in reference to the most present incident, the reason why we are here. Just so you guys don't get confused, in this packet that I'm sending up is basically the compliance of the property from the original order, which there's a copy in here, to the new order that was issued. The only changes was going to be in number 3 to basically fines, to many times that we've been out to the property, and I'm going to send this up separate so each and every one of you guys do get this. She already has hers. She can review that if she'd like to. So I'm going to take you back. Not all of them are on here. I just tried to make it as brief as possible, just to get you guys up to speed to where we are. So on September 28, 2018, affidavits were filed against Rocky for running at large. District Court heard FTA, the owner. Judgment was filed, $50 fine, guilty. On October 7, 2018, affidavits were filed, Rocky running at large. District Court heard owner showed, it was a $50 fine, guilty. On February 5th, 2019, affidavit filed, Rocky Public Safety. District Court heard, owner appeared, $50 guilty. On April 7th, 2019, running at large, citations issued for Rocky by Officer Fabrizi, third offense, $500 fine. District Court heard, guilty. On April 20th, 2019, affidavit filed, Rocky running at large. District Court heard, owner appeared, second offense, $100, guilty. On May 10th, 2019, at approximately 045 hours, Animal Care and Control received a complaint from a Mrs. Megan Saucier for her dog just attacked. Officer Simpson, which is Animal Control, Officer Simpson responded to 110 Tarragon Lane concerning the animal attack. Upon his arrival, he met with the complainant, Mrs. Megan Saucier. Mrs. Saucier stated that 2 dogs from 164 Carterman Drive, Apollo, which is a Belgian Malinois, brown and black in color, and Rocky, brown brindle, Pitbull type, left the property where they reside and attacked her dog Charlie while she was walking him on a leash. Officer Simpson took a written statement from Mrs. Saucier. Mrs. Saucier advised her dog Charlie sustained no injuries. Officer Simpson then responded over to 164 Carterman Drive, where he met with the owners of Rocky and Apollo, Mr. and Mrs. Rose. Officer Simpson advised both owners of the complainant, both owners of the complaint, which they stated were unaware of the incident. Officer Simpson impounded both dogs and gave Mr. and Mrs. Rose their copy of impoundment forms. The case then was turned over to the Bite Department for review. I, Officer Thomas, then reviewed the statement of Ms. Saucier and contacted her to confirm that Rocky was the dog that bit her dog, and if Paulo, the shepherd type, did anything. Mrs. Saucier confirmed that Rocky, the pit bull type dog, did bite her dog, but her dog did not sustain any injury and Paulo did not attack. Animal Care and Control issued a potentially dangerous order on Rocky, due and means to protect the public from further incidences with Rocky, since records showed multiple times of Rocky being at large in public safety and found guilty. The order was issued and signed by the owner, Brenda Rose, on May 14, 2019. On May 31st, 2019, dog owner Brenda Rose signed a final 10-day letter to be in full compliance of the stipulations in the potentially dangerous order, due to, as of May 21st, 2019, she failed to be in full compliance. This letter gave her an additional 10 days to complete the conditions. On June 19, 2019, Animal Care and Control Officer Simpson and Lectoni responded to the Rose residence to conduct a final inspection to make sure that they were in compliance with the conditions placed in the potentially dangerous order, since several inspections were conducted and the Roses failed. The Roses were finally in compliance and Rocky was released. On June 20th, 2019, Animal Care Control received a complaint from Mrs. Jenny Staten, from 151 Carterman Drive in Edgewater that she has a dog known as Rocky belonging to the Roses is at large and confined to her garage. Animal Care and Control Officer Fabrizi responded out at 154 Cardamom Drive in Edgewater and impounded Rocky, a pit bull type brown in color belonging to Mrs. Brenda Rose. The Rose property was posted to advise that their dog was in custody of Animal Care and Control for violation of the order. A $250 fine was issued for violation of the order and found guilty in district court. Owner did not show and was issued a judgment. Inspection was conducted again. Owners fixed the issue and Rocky was released. On November 11, 2019, Anne Arundel County Police received a call from an Amy Bow from 165 Cardamom Drive in Edgewater advising that 2 large dogs were in her yard belonging to 164 Cardamom Drive and is a consistent issue of the dogs getting out. The complainant advised that the dogs were chasing people and a caller tries to leave, the dogs bark at her. Animal Care and Control was advised and requested. However, on another call at the time, Brenda Rose did call and the dogs were advised that they were back on the property and secured. On December 4th, 2019, Anne Arundel County Police and Animal Care and Control responded out to the private school St. Andrews at 4 Wallace Manor Road in Edgewater for 2 dogs on the property chasing children. Police Officer Madera responded first and arrived at approximately 12:56 hours. Upon his arrival, he met with Sergeant Hughes and Officer DeWitt, whom was on the scene already. Officer Madera spoke to the caller, Mrs. Elaine Ann Green, the assistant head of the school. Ms. Green advised that at 12:45 hours, a group of children were playing outside near the playground, which is located behind the school, when 2 dogs with collars approached the children. She described one of the dogs as being a German Shepherd type and the other a pit bull type. She advised the children panicked when the dogs approached. Ms. Green explained the 2 dogs chased a few of the children around before running off. No injuries occurred and there were no dog bites. Officer Madera advised that they located the dog's owners at 164 Cardamom Drive. The owner, a Charles Richard Rose, explained his 2 dogs have been getting out of the backyard through a damaged part of the fence. The 2 dogs observed at home were a Belgian Malinois and a pit bull. Animal Care and Control was advised and responded to the location of the home. Animal Care and Control Officer DeSantos arrived at 164 Cardamom Drive. Police were leaving the scene after returning both Rocky and Apollo back to their owner, Mr. and Mrs. Rose. Advised the officer on the scene that the dogs have potentially dangerous odors and are to be impounded. We attempted to make contact with the Roses once more by knocking repeatedly on the front door, but received negative results. After several minutes of the knocking, we could hear some noise inside of the house, but no one answered the door. I then took pictures of the property and the fence that is not up to code with the order, as well as the small type sign in the window advising of a potentially dangerous animal on the property. On December 11, 2019, Officer Thomas obtained a search and seizure warrant to impound Rocky under 124403 of the Anne Arundel County Code for violation of the potentially dangerous order and Article 124501, authority to impound. On December 13, 2019, myself and Officer DeSantos responded directly to the home of Mr. and Mrs. Rose, pulled into the driveway and parked behind their vehicle, a small black SUV. I and Officer DeSantos stood in the driveway waiting on Southern District Police to show. Miss Rose exited the backyard through a gate coming to the vehicle. I began to explain why we were there and about the violation of the order on December 4, 2019. I advised Mrs. Rose that her dogs Rocky and Apollo were out running and were up at the St. Andrews School chasing the children. I explained that I had a warrant. She understood. I told her the warrant was obtained due to no contact or response to several calls and emails about the incident. Miss Rose advised her husband, whom was present, that she had to turn Rocky over due to the warrant. I explained that the county police was going to arrive shortly. Miss Rose went and retrieved Rocky and placed him on the van and signed all paperwork. A copy of the evidence sheet, the warrant, animal data form, the impoundment paperwork was given to Miss Rose for her copies. Rocky was then taken into custody for violation of the current potentially dangerous order. I did advise that they can appeal any decision that was made. After full review of the case file and discussion of the present violation and the inability for the owners to maintain Rocky on the property, Animal Care and Control issued a new potentially dangerous order with new instructions on number 3 of the fence requirement. Apollo's was to get a warning letter. The order was issued to Miss Rose, and her husband Charles Rose and Miss Rose signed it on December 17, 2019. Miss Rose filed an appeal, and Rocky is still in our care and custody. I do apologize, it is quite a bit. Officer Madera is here, and I only brought him in so that he can vouch the fact that the dogs were on. It is not a public school for the county, it is a private school, but they did respond out to St. Andrews, and he can test to that.
That's the school on 214?
Route 2. It's off of Route 2.
Or Route 2?
Wallace Manor.
Wallace Manor, you have Tarragon Lane.
Right.
The next one down is Wallace, and it's kind of behind the church off of Tarragon. Kind of sits in the back and stuff. It's a private,
It's a small private school.
yeah, Christian school.
Anything else?
Don't have anything. She pretty much explained the entire report that I filed, but I spoke with Miss Green, the assistant head of the school. She advised at 12:45 that dogs did come over and chase the children. One child did report that she was bit, and advised later that there was no bite, which is why I reported that there was no bite and there were injuries. But the dogs were at large. I then spoke to Mr. Rose after we found the address of the owner. Spoke with him. He stated that the dogs do get out through the fence sometimes because it's damaged. At the time, Apollo was already home, so he had already returned home, and Rocky was entering the yard as we were speaking with Mr. Rose. The dog didn't seem dangerous and quickly returned inside, but he was out in the open and returned home while we were speaking with Mr. Rose.
Okay. Anything to add?
No, just basically with all the information that we have and a multitude of violations that are occurring that goes all the way back to 2017, the only thing that Animal Care and Control, and we sat and we discussed this case in full length of how we can prevent this. The pictures that I sent forward in reference to the fence that they had around their property, and understanding the circumstances of what Mr. Rose advised Officer Madera. Also, while we were there with the warrant and stuff, Detective Connie Butkus, which is with Southern District, was there on the scene with me as she came in later. She did advise me that Mr. Rose did tell her that Rocky dug himself out. So the concern is that we feel it's necessary that everything else that's in the order can stay the same. We never had any issues with that, and definitely with the issues is the fence. We're not going to approve the fence that is there on the property because obviously we have continuing violations to keep occurring. So basically what we did is we changed number 3, so the new order states that they have to basically build a 6-foot board-on-board fence. It has to be where it's completely to the ground, obviously, and it has to have an anti-digging device placed in. Whether it can be, and I usually work with my owners on different types of anti-digging devices if they're interested in examples.
I do want to confirm, it says the dog is 13 years old?
About that.
14 years old?
I think he's actually 12.
Okay.
He's an older dog. We'll say
He's
10
older.
plus.
He's not in great health.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah. The only other thing to add, and I'm sure Brenda will bring this up, is that her and I have been diligently talking with each other in reference to this and how to correct this. There was talk that she wanted the dog to go to Abigail, which is in North Carolina. North Carolina was contacted. I did talk to the jurisdiction down there. They have stipulations that are very similar to ours that they have to come in compliance with. The last conversation I had with Mrs. Rose is that it's in discussion whether or not that it's going to go with a transfer or they're going to make some changes at the house.
Okay.
What about, so you would not allow a kennel in lieu of the fence?
No.
That's what I was, can I ask why?
So basically, what we were concerned about is that multiple times of the violations and stuff we found where there was doors open, meaning the front door, we didn't feel that that Mr. Rose or Mrs. Rose was going to be responsible enough by taking him from house to kennel. Because we've had multiple violations, again, anything from front door, gates open, broken down fences, now digging under the fence. It's going to be up to you to make that decision, but we're going to stand firm with what we're asking.
Okay.
I would like to say, first of all, that Rocky did not dig under the fence. I walked my entire yard around. He did not dig a hole anywhere in there. There's this place, there's a gap behind the bamboo. I found where he separated it. So our intention is to replace all that. We had somebody come in last week and clean out the whole area so that we can get to it to replace the fencing.
It's really hard to get to.
The time that I've never been home when he's been picked up for one of these things. If the door was left open, a lot of times it was because we had a construction person or someone working in the house, not pulling the front door. but we tried to get in compliance with everything else. So since that time, as you saw from, I think it was June to November, we did pretty well until the fence was damaged again. The gates have been secured with the slamming device, you know, so it shuts tightly so they can't pull the gate open, but he pries but on top of that, and I apologize profusely to anybody that he ever frightened, because we've been raising him in our house with our kids, with our grandkids. I have 6 adult children now, but during the time that they were in school and Rocky was in the house, we probably had 2,000 people pass through our house with parties, homecomings, graduations, office parties, everything, and not a single time has there ever been an incident of him ever being aggressive toward a person. If there's loud noise, he goes and hides. If there are people at the house, he goes and hides under a dresser, which is his favorite place to lay. He's never been aggressive. There was another animal in our house for about a year that one of my sons brought home, and that dog would always be aggressive toward Rocky. Rocky would just run away. He never wanted anything to do with any kind of confrontation like that. He will play with other dogs, but he's never shown aggression toward people or toward animals. When I walk him at night, if I go past the house and there are dogs in the yard that are in the electronic fences and they run toward us barking, he doesn't even look at them really. We walk past. He has no interest. So I don't understand the behavior. I don't know if he was trying to play with the dog or what he did. He obviously didn't bite him to hurt him. There were no bite marks. But now if I send him to North Carolina with my daughter, if he should one time escape her home, they'll euthanize him. So he's branded with that, you know, that we can't even find him, rehome him. You know, she fosters animals and has a 6-foot fence. It's very secure. They will check out her property to make sure it's okay, but he's really been a great dog. And it could be, and I had discussed this with Officer Thomas before, the fact that we have a younger dog in the house now. Maybe he's trying to show off or something. I don't really know. Apollo is not aggressive, but he's young and he's big and he's frightening because he's a big playful dog. But I have letters in here, you know, 3 from my kids and 1 from a coworker and 1 from my neighbor across the street. I got a call. I literally got a phone call about probably 5 weeks ago on a Saturday evening, and this lady calls and I said hello. I didn't recognize the number, and she says to me, "I just want to let you know that your dogs are terrorizing the neighborhood again and have just bit somebody." And I'm like, I don't think so. Let me look real quick and make sure I'm not mistaken. My dogs are in the house. You know, they're in the house, sitting with him in the back room. And I'm like, no, it's not them. They did nothing, you know. And so she called me back later and apologized and said, you know, her husband had told her he had met our dogs with his dogs, and our dogs are not aggressive and nasty and vicious, and someone else had bit somebody on Cardamom Drive. But they really, all I can say is he's a good dog. I don't know how, obviously we are responsible for containing them in our yard. That is on us.
I repaired the fence they didn't
1000%.
get out for months. I repaired the fence. I did have an old fence.
We're
spent
replacing
probably
it slowly.
$1,000 on fixing it's a big lot. I've got a double acre. It's all over an acre. And I repaired it all, and it was older fence that blew down. Well, this section I repaired, a tree branch, I found out
On the
later.
other side.
On the other side, nice neighbor, he loves my dog. I mean, a branch fell in a storm and knocked the fence apart, separated what I had repaired, and broke it loose, and that's where he pulled through and got loose. Pollard doesn't leave the yard unless Rocky leaves the yard. I can leave my gate wide open, he never leaves. Pollard doesn't want to leave. But Rocky likes to walk around, and the branch fell down in the storm. I didn't see it. He got out that day. It's my fault. I'm not saying it's or the storm's fault. I should have fixed it the next day. I didn't see it. It's behind this bamboo. You really can't even see through the bamboo. It's like 15 feet of bamboo. It's really hard to even get back in there. So, you know, I did fix it. I was lax before because, quite frankly, I never thought he would ever do anything because he's so friendly. I have contractors come by. Since my kids left, they all moved out. And the last one 2 years ago, but they all been moving out. I got 6 kids, and they've been moving out over the past 8 years. So I've remodeled my house. I waited till they left. It's not a good idea to remodel before while they're there. They just tear it back up. So I remodeled my kitchen. I've been having workers, and I would leave my back door open all the time. And people he's never seen before will walk in the house, and they say he just walks up and sniffs at them and walks away. I've had workers at my house. He's never attacked anybody. I feel bad, I
And we
did
never
not.
thought we could rely on him for
Yeah.
protection if we needed it. That's
Yeah,
how
I think a
Rocky is.
rabbit chased him in the house one time.
It's just,
But, I mean, he's really a friendly dog. He's been out before, yeah, he's been out a lot of times, but never did anything. This is the only time he was accused of something ever. It's not right he's getting out, I'm not justifying that, but I find it hard to believe that if a pit bull bit somebody, there wouldn't be a mark. When he was younger, he doesn't do it anymore, when he was younger, he could grab a rope and you could spin him around and off his feet, 6 feet up in the air, and he could hold on to that rope. Pit bull bites you, there's gonna be a mark. Now, I'm not saying they're not telling, that it might, I don't know, but he's a really good dog, and I will fix the fence. We do have a kennel, I'm so glad you know that. I do have a concrete kennel. I never put him in there because I never had problems with him.
we thought we could fence around it.
We
with
could
the
fence around it
6-foot
without the
fence.
kennel, but I have, it's only like 50 feet from my back door. I can walk around it there, it's concrete, the fence is 5 feet high, I can make it 6 feet. Really, he's a nice kennel. It was put in 20 years ago, before we bought the house 24 years ago. It was put in when it was there when we bought it. But he never had to put him in there. But I can make sure I can do that kennel, and there's no way he can get out of that. And not to trust us after we've been through all this, to walk him from our back door into the kennel. You know, we've raised 6 kids, and they're all 3 graduated from college, and they're all doing well. I think we can take care of this dog. 5 of my kids
Go
went.
outside with him when he's outside, I went out with him.
5 of my kids went to St. Andrews private school for 6 years. That costs a lot of money, and so I can take care of a dog. I mean, I got 5 kids that went to, I had 6 kids, but 5 went to St. Andrews, right up the street. Great school. Went there for 6 years, 5 years, something like that. Long time. So, you know, we just want to be able to put him in the kennel.
Or
We-
I'd like to be able to transfer him without him having.
Okay,
to
let me
death.
just clarify. As you know, the potentially dangerous order has 11 requirements. Which requirements are you challenging or asking us to remove?
I don't know, I just want him to be able to have a future. I mean, I don't care if I have to put a muzzle on him when I walk him. I don't think it's wonderful,
That's-
he's an old guy, that's not a big deal to me. He can't go anywhere else because of this name that he has, you know, certainly, I mean, I sent him to Craven County, North Carolina. My daughter, again, she fosters dogs, she has 2 dogs of her own, she fosters other dogs. My son has trained dogs, he offered, but he
Did she
can't
let
keep
her?
them because he's in Anne Arundel County also. I can't do anything else with them that we might be more secure because they don't wanna meet all of those other requirements. They know him, love him, know he's gentle, know that they trust him with any of their babies, but
He's been around kids and everybody, I mean, they sit on him, they pull on him, he never even snapped. I never see him, but I know,
doesn't growl.
he doesn't even bark. He comes out, my neighbors say, I never even seen him bark.
One other thing is, maybe, you know, I had mentioned this, perhaps it is the 2 animals together thing, I don't know. I guess they could be different when they're
Pack.
together, the pack thing maybe sets in, I don't know. I could walk them separately, let them out separately, but, you know, obviously be out with Rocky, because he is the one that tends to walk through walls, I don't know.
Officer Thomas, I have a question for you. 5/10/2019, he was, Rocky or Apollo and Rocky being involved in animal attack, both dogs impounded, issued potentially dangerous order. No, that case was not heard here, correct?
No, they didn't appeal it.
They
I
didn't appeal it, they
misunderstood,
signed the
well, I
order.
misunderstood the paperwork, I'm sorry.
I mean, I'm listening to what you guys are saying, and you're saying this dog's never attacked anybody, yet you guys signed off on an order where the dog was potentially involved in an animal attack. You guys just signed off blatantly on it. So, I mean, you're
Well,
sitting here
the-
trying to explain to us that the dog, you know, I'm just wanting to
Okay,
clarify the
Officer
facts.
Thomas, when she came to the house that day with the warrant and the search and everything, but later said to me on the phone or in an email that there was an animal attack, and I thought this was a new thing that had happened that I didn't know about, not understanding it. I had already signed the
No.
paperwork.
So how
No.
could you-
But I guess you
No,
were
I'm
related to the
just gonna
first one.
clarify some things right
I messed
now
up on
and
that
stuff,
one.
but in understanding that Mrs. Rose is confused. So, you know, this right here, basically, that's why I gave her a copy, is that this is every violation that has ever happened at this house, in court, including with going to district court, which the Roses have failed many times to FTA, then that's why these public safety ones were upheld. Where it's either the dogs out chasing people, dogs chasing kids on bikes, etc. Now granted, those people are not here in the courtroom to vouch for that, or maybe some of the neighbors that are here, okay? The original order, that's why I made sure that you guys got the original order paired to the order that is now in place now in reference to number 3, changing in reference to the fence, okay? The original order basically stated that on May 10th, 2019, your dog Rocky, a pit bull mixed hand and altered male, was involved in an animal attack while at large.
Was he alone?
Okay, so they were advised of that, okay? Apollo, that's why it made clearly when I spoke to Mrs. Saucier to make sure, because Apollo has gotten out just as many times as Rocky's gotten out, okay? This is a multi-dog household where multiple violations are happening with both of these dogs, and unfortunately, Rocky getting himself in trouble with public safety issues, including the animal attack, understanding that there was no injuries, there was still an attack that happened where he was off the property, okay? That's why Animal Care and Control, understanding that we want to protect the public, that's why we went with a potentially dangerous order, okay? I have been at the Roses property multiple times in reference to this makeshift fence that you guys are looking at with the photographs and making sure that it was secured the best way that we could, okay? Without them physically purchasing a fence and reinstalling, okay? Let me remind you in my IR that I issued up front with you all. It stated it here on June 19th, Animal Care and Control Officer Simpson and Lachoni responded to the Roses residents to conduct the final inspection to make sure that they were in compliance with the conditions placed in the potentially dangerous order, since several inspections were conducted and the Roses failed. Okay? I was one of the officers that went out there during the failure. The Roses then finally were in full compliance and Rocky was released. June 20th, not even 24 hours, Rocky is back out and at Mrs. Staten's house in her garage. Okay? That's what I'm trying to say. Our job is trying to protect the public, but also protect the interest, understanding that Rocky is a senior dog, and understanding she's got Apollo at the house, and he's been running too. Okay? That was the whole purpose of understanding that we needed to make this property as secure as possible. The reason why we didn't go with a kennel is because, one, it's not a kennel, it's a run. There's a difference between a run and a kennel. It's a 5-foot-high chain link fence, okay, and it's pretty long. So to me, it's not a kennel, it's a run. If it was a kennel and you guys put a kennel requirement on it, it would have to basically be a 10 by 10, you know, and we could probably issue a concrete bottom, just so we did not have any more incidences. This is 2 pages long of nothing but violations and guilty verdicts, okay? We've then, in turn, discussed this in full length, and how can we correct this problem in Cardamom Drive, as well as the community, all the way up to Tarragon and now St. Andrew's School, okay? That was the reason why we did not go with a kennel, because we didn't feel that the Roses were responsible enough to take their dog from house to kennel, okay? Mind you, we could have the dog get away, go out, jump the fence, underneath the fence, and next thing you know, we have them out. They were out multiple times, doors open. I've got officers here at my care and custody, or my Animal Care and Control, that can vouch of going to the property and the front door is open and people were knocking, county police were called and trying to get Mr. Rose to come to the door, okay, with no success. Officer Madera even testified to the fact that the dog, Rocky, was trotting back up onto the property. He was still at large. Apollo made himself home, okay? We're not here to deem this dog vicious. We're not here to euthanize this animal, okay? What we did was we felt that this was a concrete order. It's potentially dangerous, not dangerous, which we could have bumped this up, but we didn't, okay? But we decided that number 3 needs to be a little bit more concrete. And that's why we stated that the fence that they have on their property is not going to be suitable, that we are not going to accept it, we're not going to approve it, that a better fence needs to be placed on the property and some kind of anti-digging device to be on the safe side. Period.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anything to add?
Well, he doesn't dig, and it is, I didn't know a kennel had to be a certain size. It's probably 15 feet or 18 feet by 10. But it is concrete, solid concrete, and the fence is in good shape. I just have to raise it up. Yeah, I can cut it in half
We could
to
build a
make
fence
it.
around it.
Yeah, I can build a fence
Rather
around
than
it.
that, completely redo it.
And I do feel we're responsible enough to walk them from here to the kennel. The door was not open when they came. I opened it when the police came. And then I got him in, and he wasn't running up to the hill. He was on the property when the police were there. He was on the property in the front yard, and he was walking up slowly, which is how he walks. He's got tumors all over his legs. And like I said, once again, I don't think anybody, but if they saw he did it, I just can't imagine it, but I'm sure everybody says that. But we are responsible enough to keep him in a kennel. And like I said, the storm came up and knocked out, didn't realize it knocked the fence out, I fixed it, and then, and they approved what I did. And then if he got out 24 hours, maybe they missed something, and maybe I missed something, we both
There
missed
was-
something.
I know exactly what there was.
Because they approved this, they must have
Post
missed something
that
that I
they
didn't see
inspected,
either.
And it wasn't, I guess it wasn't secure, and he found that one spot in the whole fence and pushed it open. He knew what it was. and he
It's a
fixed it
6-foot
immediately.
fence all the way around.
So here's a question. After the first 5 incidents, what action did you all take to try and prevent this from happening? in
Every
the
time he
future?
got out, we went out and tried to fix
We
whatever
fixed the
spot it
fence.
was.
And
We
they
weren't in a
approved- we
financial
fixed it to-
situation to replace the whole fence, and we were trying to do it a
We
piece at a
paired-
time, so now we're trying to save up to try to get all of the sections replaced. One of the problems is that we're putting a concrete barrier all the way around.
Costs
We certainly can't
$10,000.
afford to do that, but honestly, after the digging thing, I didn't know Richard had said, oh, he dug his way
I
out.
did say that.
He didn't actually dig.
I did not say
He didn't
that.
dig, there are no holes in the yard that he dug. He
I
probably
did say,
dug a
I
hole in
said.
the middle of the yard, but not around
I never
the
said he
area.
dug. I
Here's
don't know.
another question.
I'm sorry if she said that.
If the dogs seem to be Houdini,
Yeah.
why not, instead of leaving them in the yard
I
where
go
they're
out with
able
them
to
every
escape,
time.
why not just take them for walks?
I agree with you. I try to be in the yard with him anytime I let him, because I know if there is a remote possibility of him vanishing, he'll try to do it, because he just likes to wander. But so when I go out with him, he doesn't ever get out. I mean, I'm with him.
What about the times
But
when you're not
there-
at home?
There are 20
Yeah,
different
I think that's
instances
the
here where
point.
you guys
If
have
you
gone
go
to
out with
court.
him, he can't get out.
Right.
And if you just let him out back, he's finding ways out. So I think
Right.
that's the
So
answer to your
That's what I'm
question.
saying. I usually stand out in the yard with them.
That's what I'm trying to
Or
explain
run
to
with
you.
them, or play
That's
with
what-
them, and
That's
that's,
the answer to
that's
the question here,
answer
though.
to the question. That is the answer.
We don't let
It's
the, we can't let the
supervision.
dog run, exactly.
You're exactly right.
So unfortunately, that's where
You're
we are now.
exactly
But
right.
that's the answer to this question.
And you have to understand, there are concern with the fact, and even talking with Mrs. Rose of how the basis she says is a lot of times she doesn't know about these incidences because she's not home.
Question for you. When you cite the fines here, on page 2 of your document?
Which one? This one?
Yes, page 2. I notice there's only 2 of them that are marked paid. Are the rest of these fines unpaid?
Some of them are unpaid. I paid some of them.
There's, for the most recent incident, so they're not gonna be on here, they're not gonna be on here to show because they haven't been dispositioned yet in the court of law. Okay, so there's new citations. Everything that is on here is current, right now, as of right now.
Okay, because when I total this up, it totals up over $3,000 in fines. But what you're saying, they've only paid $100 worth?
If it says paid, that's where that's where we're at. But I know that there are some citations that haven't been are dispositioned yet. That means they haven't gone to court yet. Okay, like the violation of the order
Right.
with the most recent, okay, for December, that hasn't gone to court yet. And that's a $250 fine.
Right.
Well, I certainly, to the Roses, I acknowledge, I'll be with you, and I can go, that you acknowledge that you care about your dogs, and I can see that. The issue in this particular case for me is just the sheer quantity.
Yeah, we've got to
I mean,
get out,
this is extensive. This is beyond what I have seen being on this commission or even in the field, quite a bit for a long time. And this is just so many repeated incidents. And I understand, based on what we've heard thus far today, that it doesn't appear that Rocky is aggressive, but he does not have to be aggressive to be either potentially dangerous or dangerous. They don't have to be aggressive to be potentially dangerous or dangerous. I just want to make sure that you're clear on that. If he's at the school and he knocks someone down, if he knocks somebody off their bike, that is dangerous. It's dangerous to be running at large, especially repeatedly. So that's unfortunately a big issue, and I think that at this point, I mean, obviously the fence is the key. That's why it was
It
changed in the
is.
second order, and I think
They
it's.
did approve it,
there's-
and somehow they did approve it.
Right, but the dogs are dogs, and they're only going to be as good as we set them up to be.
Yeah,
They're only gonna be
absolutely.
successful if we set them up to be, and I don't wanna be, I don't wanna sit here and be hard on you. You clearly, have plenty to be concerned about, but this is huge. For me, it's a large history that points to a problem, and I at this stage have to say that the containment is really the key to being successful, and that is a responsibility that we all have as owners of dogs, so.
To pour concrete around 1.25 acres and put a new fence in would cost, I'm just guessing, over $20,000.
Well, it doesn't have to be
And the-
concrete.
Well, listen,
The other
can the
thing-
fence be lesser than what, I don't mean lesser in construction, but lesser in size than what it is now?
6 feet high is a requirement.
6 feet high, but as long as it goes from their outdoor in the back around in a smaller area than what the fence is now, is that allowed?
I guess the concern is whether or not they're gonna be responsible enough for them going from point A to point B.
Well, if they
I'm
don't
not
have
saying-
to,
No, I'm
it-
saying it would be, as
include
if
a
there was a
door.
backyard fence, just,
Right.
shrink it
So
down
they
in
make it
size, so
smaller,
the cost would be
absolutely.
less.
The property is
but
quite large.
I'm
They
just
can make
trying
it-
to
yeah, they
give
can make it
options.
smaller.
My concern now is for this dog, who obviously is in the middle of all this, who is not getting its proper, exercise, who end up in animal control all the time.
No, there's
For
two.
this, and then other kids and everything else. So I understand that. There's another dog. So in this situation, I'm just looking at, if you can't go around 1.5 acres, if you can build a 3/4 acre fence or whatever it is to cut
Right,
down the
as long as
cost.
the back door, because it's sliders, it goes out to a deck and everything. I mean, as long as it basically, if the dog is going out from the back door, it's going into a
Fenced-in
6-foot, fenced-in area.
You don't care how big that
If
area
you
is.
keep the anti-digging, it does not have to be concrete. There are other options for anti-digging that a lot of my other dog owners have done with the
Well, like
6-foot
what,
privacy
because Brenda
fence.
just told me concrete, it's gonna say concrete.
So I'm guessing as long as that area is larger than the size of the kennel, that would be permissible by you guys, right? So it's not a small, tiny little area.
Right, I mean,
As long as it's bigger than a kennel and it's fenced
What
in.
has to
if they're
include the
fencing in
door.
closer to the door and they do a smaller area, that's fine.
But that's
As long as
permissible.
it's going from door into the
Okay.
backyard, into a secured fenced area that's 6 feet high and the anti-digging, absolutely, it would be approvable.
How much does Rocky weigh?
About
40.
50 pounds probably.
How much does Apollo weigh?
Probably about 85.
Okay, see, here's the problem right off the bat. If Apollo's able to get out of that yard, Rock can get out all day long.
Yep.
Apollo is an athlete.
That
and
doesn't
could
make a
probably
difference.
Well, it's a different,
He
he
can
can
jump.
jump if he chose to jump over anything that he wanted to jump over. Rocky can't jump, okay?
He can
So
go-
Rocky is low to the ground, and he has to have something he can pull apart. That's how he does it. He has to find a hole
He
that he
can't
can
jump.
get through. He can't jump. He just can't do it.
He could,
But if the dog's making a straightaway through,
If the door was open for him to go.
Apollo's gonna
sure.
follow him, why jump?
We don't want, I mean,
He'll
we're not
follow
trying
him.
to take that risk. That's what I'm saying.
Apollo's not in the question, we're
I'm
not talking about
willing-
Apollo, right?
I'm willing to take them out separately.
We're
Say
talking
we
about
can-
Apollo from the
but-
standpoint that Apollo accompanied Rocky on several of these
Right.
wanderings. So if
Right.
Apollo could escape,
I
obviously,
know this sounds
But
Rocky
crazy.
it
can
always
as well.
goes
Apollo
Rocky
doesn't
first.
leave
He
with
doesn't
Rocky,
unless
he only
Rocky
follows
takes it.
Rocky. He went out, leave the yard, I can leave the gate wide open, they were over there that day.
He'll walk out, walk right back in.
And,
He doesn't go
and
out.
I was out there talking to them when they picked Rocky up, and Apollo came out, and they go, oh, who let him out? I said, I did, because watch. He'll walk out to us and look at us, and then he went right back in the yard.
One visit to the
Rocky,
van
would
and he
Apollo
walks
would not
back.
leave the yard unless Rocky does, he goes with him.
Uh,
Apollo,
I see
But
Apollo's name
Apollo
on
has
here
left
just
the
as
yard.
frequently as I
Because
see
he's left the
Rocky.
yard with Rocky, that's what I'm saying. He's never gone, to
by
my
himself.
knowledge.
Since we got,
he's not been
since
out
he's
alone.
been back, he hasn't gone. Since Rocky's been here, he has not left the yard, since Rocky's been here. I know it sounds crazy, but Apollo just doesn't want to leave the yard. He doesn't care. Rocky does. He likes to walk around, and that's what he used to do.
And
That's
under-
why,
On this document, under impounds,
Apollo was here.
Apollo
once.
was here 4 times,
With
Rocky
Rocky.
twice.
4 times?
That's what it says.
May I
There.
ask, what
that's
is-
because the defense was, yeah, okay,
Neighbors
but
are-
we
What is
fixed that. We
the-
raised it
Okay, why
to
not?
6
When you
feet.
get time.
Okay.
We raised it to 6 feet so he couldn't jump.
Please, stand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to see if it would be helpful for us to speak. So my name is Megan Soche, it was my dog and I who were involved in the bite from Rocky on May 10th. Apollo was picked up at my house one time because he was on our back porch.
Oh.
So while I appreciate the Rose's experience, our experience with the dogs in the neighborhood is really different. And I think that's what you see with all of these different incidences where they're out, and I'm not sure how they're getting out, and I really appreciated Mrs. Rose saying that when they are together, we end up with this incident. In my case, Apollo came after Rocky, so Rocky came over on one side, Apollo got on the other side, Charlie and I in the middle. They start nipping. Rocky nips Charlie. We get out and get to another neighbor's house who takes us in and drives us home. So those are the kinds of things that we're having pretty consistently with the dogs. And my experience is one, obviously, but I think you can see from all the judgments that we see them very frequently out. And it's been a long time until we saw them or heard about them being up at St. Andrews. But that's kind of the experience that we see in the neighborhood, so. Happy to answer any questions. I know you guys have
Thank you.
procedural pieces,
No,
but
that's
we didn't
fine.
want to not.
I'd like to hear from the other two parties.
My name's Elizabeth Blumbo. I'm at 161 Cardamom, so I guess in layman's terms it would be catty corner, but diagonally across from the Roses. And I appreciate their attempts with the fence. And I do appreciate the due diligence that animal control has given. Living where I live, I can say that this is a bi-weekly occurrence. We have a Facebook page that we actually have to post. The Roses dogs are out. So everyone is aware, your dog's out, the kids are out, people know. My porch faces their house. I would probably say at least 5 times in the last 3 years, children on my porch. That dog just chased me banging on my door. That dog bit my bike, that dog pulled my pant leg. And now I will say, I've lived there for 7 years. In the beginning, you could tell Rocky, go home. Sometimes he wanted water, he could have water, he could have my dog's food, and he would go home. With the arrival of Apollo, it has become a different story. They have squared off my husband, they have squared off other neighbors just talking to me in the driveway, and they have squared off myself and my very small dog. And I own a dog, love dogs. It's a very scary situation. And while I appreciate the attempts at the fence, I would agree with the word that was being used again and again, responsibility. And I haven't seen that. That's my biggest fear. And one of those dogs is either gonna get hurt, they're up and down, tearing up. I'm gonna stop there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I actually went to court on February, well, the incident happened on February 27th, but then I went to court because I sent in an affidavit. Both of, it was, and this goes to, well, Apollo never leaves the yard without Rocky's the one that he follows. Well, Apollo followed my children home. I'm at the end of Cardamom, and the bus stops, one of them is at the corner of the Roses home. The other one is at the other corner behind them. So there are children at these bus stops alone because they walk to the bus stops by themselves. And I've had my kids call and say, the dogs are out, you know, and I'm like, walk calmly, you know, maybe go to the other side of the street, you know. I mean, we're having to do this constantly, and it's scary. And, you know, the dogs may be fine at home, but their actions out are quite different. And the day that they followed my kids home, they said, walk calmly, I'll come out to, you know, meet you. And it was just Apollo. And I'm about a quarter of a mile from the house. So it's not like they're just roaming around their yard or right outside their yard. They're going distances when they have a kid to follow. And I know we've had incidents where kids are on bikes, and when a big dog's coming at you, you're scared. You're a little kid, you're gonna pedal faster, and the dogs chase after them. What if they knock the kid down? What if a car's coming and the kid is deciding between the car and the dog? I mean, it just is continually happening, and you know, they keep promising, oh, we're getting a fence, oh, I'm fixing the fence, oh, the fence is fixed. But I mean, this has been years of this, and we kind of feel like we're held at, you know, we're the ones that, people that have animals can't walk their dogs around their house because they're afraid their dog's gonna get attacked. And it's not fair to the community, it's not fair to the kids. There's a lot of young kids in this community. And it's not fair to them that they can't be safe walking in the community. And I mean, I'm lived there for,
I'm
14
20
years.
years.
14 years. And this has started way before this documentation has been, it wasn't always people calling animal control. They'd either take the dog back to the house or, you know, just ignore the dogs. And like I said, with those bus stops right there, it is really, really intimidating for these young kids that are this high, these big dogs. And, you know, they might be nice dogs, but when there's no one there to make them mind or to have control of them, there's going to be a really unfortunate accident happen. And when I was in court, I asked the judge, what do we keep sending in the affidavits, we keep, you know, telling you when they're out, and half the time the poor animal control people, you know, by the time they get there, the dogs, they can't find them, or, so this is just the incidents that the dogs have been found. You know, and no offense to the residents, I have never seen them walk the animals, never, in the whole time I've lived there. And we see people walking their dogs all the time. So, I mean, this fence would be a godsend to us as not having to worry about our children and worry about, you know, them continually getting out. It's habitual. And like I said, you're only seeing the ones that, when they were caught.
Can I say something?
I
I,
Wait, I just want to make sure she's finished.
oh, I'm sorry.
can't understand how much
Ma'am,
I want to put it into
Rose,
this
please.
also.
She has to finish.
I apologize, I'm sorry.
All right, yes.
I agree with her. I didn't know it was like that. I agree with her. Brenda does walk them at night. We get home late from work, like 7, 8, and she walks them usually in the dark, but that's no excuse. I agree with her. We got to do something.
Okay.
I don't have anything else to say, but I agree with them.
All right.
I'm not going to sit here and say I don't.
Never heard any of these stories, and I
Yes.
apologize. My
I
kids
can
do go by.
appreciate you saying that.
Yeah,
I really can,
100% agree. I'm not even wavering. I mean,
because this is your responsibility.
yes, it is.
And it's gone too far,
Yes, it has.
and you have to accept that.
I do.
And I agree with him for that.
I agree as well.
And I think just our major concern is and stuff, and it's true. A lot of times when we talk to Brenda, Brenda's not aware of what's going on, you know, because she works during the day. You know, and the neighbors are fully aware. They see her trucks in the neighborhood. We started doing daily patrols in this community every day.
What's the area
So
of
it's,
concern? I mean, I see that there's a St. Andrew's Day School here, I mean, and.
It's about-
and
it's
they
hard to
just-
see from the main road.
They
So if
just
it's like
described
Route
a
2,
quarter
It's in the
mile.
neighborhood. It's a school
How
you
far
can
do you
walk,
think it's
it's like
from
3
Cardinal?
blocks.
I mean,
My kids
mileage,
live in
yardage.
School, yeah.
it's about a mile.
It's about a mile and a half, I would say.
Mile and a half, yeah.
Not to
Yeah.
the school from our house.
It's
not.
about a half mile, quarter mile.
It's less than that, because if I walk the whole area all the way around, I'm less than a mile. If I walk all the way up to the school and all
There's
the
a
way
back way,
back.
you go to the right and straight. My kids used to walk to school.
But I mean, it's still a public area.
it's too far,
Terror
yeah.
It's too
dogs.
far.
I mean,
I'm-
these- they dogs can get hit
I-
by cars.
I agree.
I think you're very fortunate.
close
Nothing's
to Route
happened that's
2.
worse
We're
than
not
these things,
disputing
based on
that,
all the
but I
testimony, and I
think-
know the area. I know the area well, and I mean, Rocky's done well to live as long as he has,
Yeah,
based
dog
on
and
his
cat would get
history.
We've
So,
had-
I really do think that since Rapallo's gotten there, Rocky never did anything. Rocky
it's a
never
good
chased
point that you
anybody.
bring up, because we are talking here today about Rocky, but I think you really need to think about Apollo. You know, moving forward,
We've had him less than 2
We
years.
just want to know what we can do to get Rocky back as far as a kennel or fence.
Can we build a 6-foot fence around the kennel, around the concrete pad, and trust us to walk the dog to it if we want to let them run?
That's what we're here for.
Again, I'm in the yard with the dogs. When I take Rocky out especially, I would go out with him every time.
I'm gonna say because of the condition of your fence, it's horrible.
It
It's
is.
horrific.
It is.
The dog's only gonna look for another way to get out. It's gonna be the same thing over and over. They're gonna come out. Both of them together are intimidating people.
Both of them together, you're right.
Yeah, they're
One of 'em-
intimidating people, all types of people,
Mhm.
They-
children to adults.
Yes,
I
it's
think-
not okay.
It's a disaster. It really is. And I mean, it just looks bad. And for you to sit there and say that you know he doesn't get out, they are getting out. They're not gonna get out in front of you. Understand that.
But I'm not
They
putting him
wanna
in the
stay
backyard
there
alone
because they know what can happen if you catch them. I just see this as a big mess.
What is your suggestion for, do you have any suggestions for the backyard? Basically, what I'm seeing here is all the attempts for this massive fence has been a failure. So now, what is it that we are recommending that they do now
That's what
as,
we're
a-
here for.
as an actual fix?
I mean, Animal Care and Control is gonna stay firm with what they're asking for. If
Okay.
they wanted to shorten it,
Right.
okay, and not necessarily do the entire backyard, that is a possible fix. However, you know, being in this business as long as I have, you know, with my other dog owners that have done this, where they have done it where the back door is the entryway into the fenced-in area, where the dog doesn't have to be led by a leash and a muzzle from point A to point B, knowing that the possibility something can happen, okay?
Making it
If they
more
made
livable
it
for them.
smaller, you know,
Mhm.
coming, like, say if they cut the yard in half,
Right.
you know, and made it smaller so that, you know, the gates have to be appropriate, okay? You know, obviously the fence has to be appropriate of what we're asking, you know, and we still could ask for that anti-digging, okay, just to be completely on the safe side. They can make it smaller coming in, but Animal Care and Control is not gonna agree with a kennel, and they're not gonna agree with a run, you know, because the fact is you have to take the dog from point A to point B. It's been proven too many
Well,
times.
So wait,
I would
wait.
also- I'm sorry. go ahead.
Sorry, I'm confused. So just having a 6-foot fence in the backyard that the dog's confined to is not enough? You have to have the kennel on top of that?
No,
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 anti-digging.
no, we
Okay.
took the kennel out, okay, and we wanted there to be a more secured fence
Right,
on
but
the
you kept
property.
saying from point A to point B.
What I'm
What's-
saying is
where's
that
point
if
B?
you guys, if you agreed on a kennel, okay, mind you, they don't have a kennel in the yard, that's a run, okay? If you agreed on that, then the dog literally has to go from point A. When I say point A, I
Right.
mean basically from the back door all the way out to the back of the yard to where this area is, okay?
Okay,
And the
all right.
possibility that we could have a problem, something
No,
happening.
I understand that completely.
So you're holding
Okay.
firm to the fence?
Yes.
And whether they are able to do something smaller, that's something that you can consult them with on inspections and make recommendations or talk to them about whatever.
You can make
needs
that
to be-
decision today.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
we're staying firm with what we're asking.
Okay.
I honestly think that that's not a lot to ask, and I also think that, based on what you guys have even said yourself, is, you know, you blamed the construction worker earlier for potentially leaving the door open. You know, those are things that a fence isn't gonna fix in the backyard. Even a secondary barrier is not gonna fix that if a construction worker's
But
coming in.
if
This
we-
really comes down to you guys taking responsibility here and making sure that that dog cannot do
We
that.
won't let anybody in the house when we're not there.
That's more important than any amount of money you're gonna put in the back end. If you're gonna leave doors wide open, then all
don't.
this is for naught. We
Well,
can
now-
put
now
up
we've put
20-foot
them-
fence, it's not gonna make a difference.
We have
We're
them
not
in a
home, they're
room,
in
and
a
we
room
leave,
with the
they're
door
in
shut.
2 rooms, they can't
Either
get
or.
out.
And I'll be honest with you, I'm glad you had the response you did to these ladies in the back, because I was, for the first time ever in the 5 years I've been here, ready to move this from a potentially dangerous to a dangerous
Mhm.
based on
Yeah,
what
they're-
seemed like a lack of comprehensive.
I heard that, and I'm not,
So I
I'm not.
really am glad that you seem
I
to
saw
get
it.
that, okay? So,
Okay, well, I think what we've heard here is that animal control is okay with a smaller fence to confine the dogs. Because the issue here in all of these is the fence.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're
And we're
agreeable.
just talking area, we're not talking height.
Right. has to
No, I
be
understand,
6
still
foot,
gotta
doesn't
comply,
have to be the whole thing.
absolutely, but it's,
Right.
but confine a smaller area.
this is the back of your house, and this is the existing fence around the house. What they're saying is if you wanted to make a fence that big
We could
to
do that.
contain the dog, to save you money, protect the dog, that is acceptable.
And protect
But
the
it has
people
to
in our
be
neighborhood.
so that,
agree.
that they still cannot get out from around the house
I-
or through the house.
I 100% agree with you.
I think that's
Okay.
what it is, everyone,
Yeah.
that's
I
what
think
we're
we're
all.
all- so we have, do we have any more testimony before we deliberate?
Nope.
I just have a question. Is there some type of time restraint on this fence? Like, how long do they have to build this?
They can't get the dog back until the fence is up. and in compliance. So, anything else? Okay, any questions before we're now closed for deliberations? My feeling is to uphold the thing and let them work with animal control to find a suitable fence of the right size that meets the conditions, and this problem will be solved.
I agree.
All in favor? Okay, thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Apologize, appreciate it.
5-minute break?
I didn't realize it.